do we pay actually, and how does that compare to the actual cost of roads and transportation? And then, what sorts of new technology are you able to use to, hey, nice to have you back again, to keep up the public infrastructure? What about stormwater and maintenance and upkeep? And then how do the city and county work together, if they do? And if they don't, why not?
We wrestle.
We do. And because I know one of your fans is here, I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I think one of the most important things you can give is your time. So thank you for your time this morning. How many of you live in the city in this room? Okay. What's your audience? How many of you live in the county? Everybody should raise your hand. A little bit of background on me, just so you know where I'm coming from. I'm a retired United States Air Force. I was a firefighter for 17 years, first sergeant for 3. So on occasion, you'll see that first sergeant mode come out when things get rough and we take care of business. I'm a failed politician. I ran for sheriff unsuccessfully, so I gave it my best shot. That didn't work out so well, but it was a run. And if you really want to test your character, run for public office. I'm here to tell you. I was fortunate enough to get this job about 3.5 years ago, I think. El Paso County is kind of unique. We have, it's a 2,100 square mile county. How much does the city encompass? 100 and... square miles, 180 square miles.
Close to 200.
So you take 200 square miles out of that, and that leaves 1,900 square miles. We have 4,000 miles of road. That's about half gravel, half paved. We suffered the economic downturn when we had the homes, so we have a lot of failed subdivisions. That roads are in very bad shape. We had bonds for some of those roads. Unfortunately, as time goes on, the cost of the CLI goes up, the cost of living index goes up, and there's never enough money to fix those things. How many of you have smartphones or access to the internet? So Dave asked a question, what do you pay for taxes? What's your property tax for roads? If you go to land.elpasoco.com, look up your address, and look up your tax statement, I bet you there's not a single person here that pays more than $11 a year. And if you compare that to the library district, you'll find out that there's quite a bit of difference. And the question I always ask is, how many of you have been to the library lately? Yesterday, very good. And how'd you get there? On a road. So the key thing is there. What we're doing in El Paso County is we've implemented a program called Zonar, which we track our vehicles, where they go, how far they go, gas miles, idle time, the whole 9 yards. We're looking for efficiencies to save money. We have about a $9 to $10 million a year shortfall when it comes to road maintenance. It's just a tough thing to do. And I know that we get calls all the time about the roads, especially the gravel roads. Those are a tough one. The mines that we have here for gravel are not so good, so we're looking at an engineered gravel that will probably last longer and work better for drainage and so forth. But what we're using on the roads now, I don't think is working. I don't believe it's working. So I'm going to look at a different way of doing things. We use a lot of salt and sand. I want to go to a brine mixture and see if that works better, if I can spray that ahead of a freeze. We've got that going. And our trucks. How many of you are under 30 years old? Okay, so I have trucks that are older than you that are out there on the road today. And so the commissioners have given me X amount of dollars to try to upgrade that system. What we're trying to do now is go to a modular system, which is real simple. I have a prime mover, and then I put whatever I need on the back. It drops on that bed and we take off. What we have is specialized trucks that I'm wearing out to do snow removal and stuff like that we don't need to do. We need to be able to module that. The modules will last longer than the prime movers will. And the prime movers are a lot less expensive than an entire truck for special use. So we're looking at ways of doing things smarter. It's taken us a while. Now, do we work together? Absolutely. And there's something that's going on now that we've started. We have a training ground or training program that we're starting that we're working jointly together. And it's, if I'm doing bulldozer training one day, we call the city and say, hey, you want to join us? And we'll do that back and forth to help each other out. How many trade schools are here in Colorado Springs, do you know? Anybody know? About none. Yeah. So the question is, how do you get a skilled workforce with CDLs and the ability to do road work? Where does that come from? It's a tough question, right?
Community college.
Well, they don't teach it though. That's the problem. So what we've done in El Paso County to mitigate that or to address that is I have an academy. Yesterday was the first graduation, the first academy, first graduation that we ever had. You don't have to have a skill set to come work for us. You come in, you work hard, we get you CDL, we get your flagger certs, we get you certified. We have you work on all the different crews during the 6 months that you're there in the academy. You graduate, and we give you a full-time job on probation for 6 months, and we assign you to a crew. I had 5 successful. I had 1 female, 3 males. Actually, I had 2 females at one point, but the 20-year-old, she went to a ranch because they paid $1 more an hour. It was hard to explain to her, hey, there's medical benefits, there's retirement. No, she wasn't having that. I want that $1 an hour. That's all there was to it. The goal is to build a workforce. Now, will I keep them once they get their CDL? I may not. I may lose them to someone who pays a little bit more, or I might lose them to J.E. Dunn, or I might lose them to another company. But we're doing something. We're trying to address that need. And we're giving people that don't have an opportunity a career, and we're training them. So that was a big thing that we did yesterday. I was pretty excited about that. Those are some of the things that we're doing to try to improve our efficiency within the organization. And I have someone here from IT that knows that we're also looking at how can we use IT to do things better. Keep in mind the DPW in the county, DPW is responsible for highway, engineering, heavy and light equipment maintenance, Office of Emergency Management, facilities, ADA requirements, and county safety. So we're not just roads, we're a pretty large organization. And that's my time. Is my time up?
You have 4 minutes
I have
left.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
How do you get into this academy?
You apply, and what's funny is when we first advertised it, we didn't have a whole lot of applicants. Now that it's happened, and these kids, some of these kids came right out of high school, I have 150, 200 applicants I gotta go through, and I can only pick 5. My goal as we work this academy is I have a previous professor at Pikes Peak Community College. We're putting all the training into a format, into a college format. We're going to put it online. So if one of my employees wants to learn the grader and pick up a little bit more money because they can work the grader, they can sit at home and study and do the testing and do all that online. If that works, then I'll go to Pikes Peak and say, hey, can we do a certificate program? Can we do ADP? What can we do? And I'll offer my facility and the training ground for that to happen. And we're also working with the city as well because they want to look at our lesson plan. So there's a lot of coordination meetings between the two of us to make that happen. I think given time and resources, that's always the thing, as Dave said, resources in El Paso County can be tight sometimes. But given time and resources, we hope to build a program where we can actually train folks into that. I was asked yesterday if I take a 65-year-old lady, I said, come on, bring it on. If you can sit in the truck and drive, I'll take you. So anyway, that's how we're doing that.
Jim, how often do you open these academies up?
So this was the first one, and it lasted 6 months, so it'd be about every 6 months. Now what's funny is my attrition rate suddenly stopped. I was losing folks left behind, now I'm almost at 100%, so I'm not quite sure. I have to kind of keep track of what's going on. I know we've raised the pay, we're working on raising the pay to at least the state minimum, or the state median. So we're working there. We just hit minimum, we were well below the minimum. So now we're at least at state minimum. So we're working towards that. So it'd be about every 6 months. My target initially was high schools, but then I realized there's folks, in their 40s and 50s that are still looking. And I thought, wow, this is great. 2-minute warning. Any other questions? None? Yes, sir.
Salt deteriorates roads, why do you use it?
Why do we use it?
Yeah.
We use different types of salt. We use it because it's effective. I mean, it's the only thing we have. I mean, if I don't use it, then what have you got?
How about liquid calcium chloride?
Well, you're talking, well, we can use something that's expensive. The question is and again, like I said earlier, we're looking at different methods. So I can't tell you exactly where, I don't know where they're at with brine testing. We have to test brine this year. That would be a little bit less damaging, but sometimes there's cost. There's a cost-benefit analysis of what you can and can't use.
But if you're putting a product on your roads, it deteriorates your roads, and you have trouble maintaining those roads.
I don't think the salt mixture is that much that it deteriorates that. I don't think there's that much damage yet. Otherwise, we wouldn't use it like we do. I mean, we would not use it like we do.
The city has this app that Dave's told me about where you take a picture and your GPS code on your.
Right.
So for the county, how does one report their, findings of a road
You'll
issue?
just have to call, you'll have to call it in, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just not there.
Describe it what they think.
And usually it's real simple, if you call there, I had people send me emails with pictures and say, here's this, can you look at it? We'll send crews out right away to do that. And a lot of times, and it's kind of funny, people say, look how bad my road is. I live in the county, out in the middle of nowhere, and I have a gravel road too, and I'll send them pictures of mine and say, well, mine looks worse than yours. And I'm in charge of these guys, so what's up with that, so.
But what is the process when you do have a road issue and you call dispatch? And do they actually contact the public back?
Right, dispatch will call the public back, they'll call you back, get the location, we'll normally send the supervisor out there within the day.
And
Well,
will be
yeah.
updated as the process moves forward?
Well,
to
normally
repair?
usually we're able to take care of it pretty quick, yeah. And you'll see that result pretty quick, you'll see that within a day or two.
Thank you.
So, I'm out of time. Travis, it's yours.
Good morning, everybody. Travis Easton, Public Works Director with the city, as Dave mentioned. I've been with the city for, I think it's been quite 2 years yet. It's gone very fast. Want to give you a brief overview of Public Works and then talk about the specific items that you guys asked about and Jim spoke about. So, the City Public Works consists of 5 divisions. The first one is the Operation and Maintenance Division. These are the folks that handle all the roadway maintenance, curb, gutter, sidewalk, all the alleys, public facilities related to drainage, the inlets, the pipes, channels, ponds. They get roughly $10 million a year from the general fund. This is also the division that 2C has run through, the roadway initiative that was passed last year. That's roughly $50 million a year for the mill and overlay that you're hopefully seeing done around the city now. And they get about $17 million in PPRTA maintenance dollars. The second division is the traffic engineering division. This is the division that handles all the city's signals. We have about 580 signals in the city that we maintain and manage. We deal with a lot of neighborhood issues, a lot of speeding issues. This is also the division where the bike lanes on Research are currently being tested out through this division. And so again, they get a lot of interaction with the public. They get about $3 million from the general fund and about $7 million in PPRTA funding. The next division is the City Engineering Capital Projects Division. They handle all the, as you know, capital projects. A lot of the roads, bridges. The city has almost 440 bridges that we maintain, which is quite a bit when you think about it. And I'd say over half of those were built in the 70s. So we're monitoring that very closely.
And the average life expectancy for a bridge?
Depending on how they were constructed, it should be around 75 years. But back in the 70s, technology's advanced a lot since then. It's true. So like I said, about 440 bridges. They receive about between 2 and 3 million in general fund money, about 26 in PPRTA capital money because of all the capital projects, and about 5 million in PPRTA maintenance money for those bridges. The next division is the transit division. This handles all of the fixed route bus services, the ADA paratransit services for our community. They get about 5 million general fund and right around 10 million in PPRTA funding. They run 362 days a year, roughly 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're trying to expand weekend service right now and connect people with jobs in the community. The last division is the stormwater division. Obviously that's something that's been in the news quite a bit lately. They get 16 million in general fund, obviously no PPRTA dollars associated with stormwater. We've recently, I'd say about a year ago, we started a comprehensive look at our stormwater program, and we've rebuilt it from the ground up over the past nine months or so. We had some issues that you may have read about with EPA. We're still talking with those folks. So what we've done over the last 9 months, we've really restructured the group, narrowed the spans of control, make sure there's more accountability in there, more coordination with maintenance functions, capital projects. You may remember early this summer, late spring, we executed an IGA with Pueblo County for 71 capital projects related to stormwater, and they agreed to clear the SDS project. And so we're doing those projects over a 20-year period. We're meeting with Pueblo County on an annual basis to go over those projects and monitor progress. And we report to them progress. And, so that's those are the 5 divisions. We're really trying to focus on transparency in the Public Works Department and customer service. I want people to trust their local government. Dave mentioned when I was in an office up in Monument, it was a good experience. I wanted to try and take some of that to the city's Public Works Department. Monument, we actually detabered twice while I was in office, which consider funding site in El Paso County, which is arguably the most conservative part in the state. Mine was arguably the most conservative part in the county, but they trusted what we were doing up there, and so we detabered twice while we were up there. So I wanted to take that to the city. So a couple things we're doing. You mentioned the pothole app. You can send that in. We also have a cone zone app. So with all the construction we're doing with 2C and whatnot, we have a cone zone app where people can get online and they can look and see what the status of the projects are, schedules. I don't think we have the budget information on there yet, but I want people to see budgeted versus actual dollars, so they can see where their dollars are going. We also have restructured over the past year and a half. That actually resulted in about $1.5 million in salary savings from 2015. And I went to council early this year, and we put all that money back into capital projects and bike master plan. So all that money is going right back into the community. With respect to funding, so I'll cover 3 areas, and I've touched on it already with the various divisions. So right now the city gets about $20 million in HUTF funding. HUTF is Highway User Tax Fund. That's made up of gas tax, vehicle registrations, penalty assessments, things of that nature. So we get about $20 million from that. We have miscellaneous fees. CDOT gives us, I think, $700,000 a year because we maintain, I think, 70 signals of theirs as well. So we have some miscellaneous fees. So all of that, we'll round up to say 22, 23 million. All of that goes back into the city's, I mentioned the general fund expenditures on each of those 5 departments. So if you add up those 4 related to transportation, the transit, traffic engineering, capital projects, and operation and maintenance, that's going to be roughly your 23 million in HUTF funding right there. So that general fund HUTF money is basically going for those expenditures. We also have the 2C initiatives that I mentioned. That's anticipated to bring in roughly 50 million a year for the overlaying that, again, you're hopefully seeing going on. So all that is basically going right back into that program. We've not hired any staff, we've outsourced everything. So again, we're trying to take everything we're getting in, putting it right back into the roads that we're supposed to maintain. And then the last one is the PPRTA funding, which I mentioned. Mentioned everything, all those divisions and the PPRTA funding they get. And that's the same as 2C. Any funding we get for PPRTA is going right back into expenditures related to our transportation system. So related to how we're working together, I think it's been a good relationship. I don't know how good it was right before I got to the city. So what we started doing was meeting quarterly, and we haven't done it lately, but I asked some of Jim's folks who handle a lot of the capital projects and the coordination to meet with our folks on a quarterly basis. We just have lunch, talk about the issues we're dealing with. So we'd alternate who buys lunch and whose location we're at, and so I thought that worked very well to get just to get a dialogue open, get the coordination happening. So you want to talk about stormwater as well. We, like I said, we've rebuilt it lately. Again, that's going fairly well. We're going to hire another 2 or 3 people next year to round out that division. Again, that division is responsible for, we have an MS4 permit, which is it's a permit related to the Clean Water Act. So it relates to the Federal Clean Water Act that's administered by the state. And so we have a permit with the state. It requires us to maintain certain pollution levels in the state waters, things of that nature, maintenance. So we're working through all that, but we've revamped that over the last 9 months, so we're well on our way to handling all that. I've got a 2-minute warning. So as far as innovative and more creative ideas lately, a couple things. Out east, for those of you who may live out east, I'm not sure anybody does in here, we've got, if you look at the roads, particularly in the residential areas, we've got a lot of wide cracks in the pavement. When those were developed back then, they did just what's called full depth asphalt. So they didn't put anything between the asphalt and the dirt. They basically compacted the dirt, poured the asphalt over it. And so you have a lot of issues out there, wide cracks, we're talking cracks that kids' bicycle tires get caught in. And it's not an easy fix. We've been trying for a couple of years to fix those. And you get out there and you film and you're nodding your head.
Right.
You get in there and fill them, and then within months, it's right back and still expanding. And so we're experimenting with a polymer asphalt. It's really flexible. So we're gonna be getting in there, putting that in these cracks to see what we can do there. And it's really an issue all over the state, because back then, when development was occurring, this was practiced done all over the state. So it's a statewide issue. Lastly, we are in process of discussing with actually a company in Monument called Cartograph. We inspect a quarter of our city a year. When I say inspect, it's the curb, gutter, sidewalk, the roads, the pedestrian ramps, signs. So we have inspectors that go around and they do a quarter of the city every year. So a 4-year cycle, we would get a look at the whole city. So with this technology, they have a vehicle-mounted system, ground penetrating radar, cameras, and they can drive it, and then we can get an assessment of our city based on this, and that'll tell us slopes of ADA ramps, in addition to cracks in the pavement, and really help us to better manage our assets. So I got the out of time sign, so I will sit down and answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about some of the minimum weather prerequisites before you can work on your roads? As we're coming into winter, I'm talking about.
Basically, it's May to October. So we're going to be wrapping up the paving here at the end of this month. Weather dependent, we might be able to go into November. We might have to go to mid-October. Just depending on weather and temperatures.
But, okay, so what is the minimum temperature before you can?
Oh.
I want to say, we just stopped chipping because of the same reason. I think I can't remember. I don't know what it is.
I can get it for you off the top of my head. I don't remember what it is either.
We've got a freeze, I think we got a light freeze tonight, about 3 or 4 hours supposed to freeze. So.
Now you can do concrete work year-round. You see a lot of concrete work being done, and you see them put blankets over it,
Yeah.
so it's heated. And concrete, as it cures, generates heat. You just can't do the same with asphalt year-round. I was getting a lot of comments after the 2C initiative passed late last year. I was starting to get emails and phone calls in January saying, "Hey, you haven't paved any roads yet. We passed this a couple months ago, and you need to explain. Well, it has to be a certain temperature before you can pave." Yes, sir.
One, I wanted to thank you guys. I went to the open house for the repaving of Pikes Peak, the reconstruction that's going to happen there, and the company and the staff that came both did a beautiful job. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
I had a question that night that I didn't feel a satisfactory answer for, so I'm hoping you can point me in the right direction.
Okay.
It's that interface between the public utilities and the private utilities. They're getting ready to tear up Pikes Peak, major, east-west. I gotta believe CenturyLink and some of the other private companies are gonna look at that and say, wow, I wanna lay some fiber down there.
Yes.
And I want them, I would like some sense of reassurance that their plans are being integrated so that we don't get partway down and then re-tear something up or find out, no, we got to stop for 6 months. So who manages that interface between private utilities and public utilities for these capital projects?
It is done primarily with the group I mentioned that runs the capital projects. And so I believe even the private utilities have to sign off on the plans before they're constructed. So that coordination is happening, and we actually get a signature from them that they've looked at it and they reviewed it, and anything that they want incorporated into it is done.
Just to get a little more pointed then with my question,
Okay.
because they're saying they're going to have the final plans done by February, but at this point they've gotten no input from those other, private utilities. So,
Okay.
so that's who do I talk to about that? What's the drop dead date for that? I just want to get some details. I don't want to
Sure.
take up everybody's time. Who do I go to for that?
Mike Chavez, and I do not have his number offhand. I believe it's
I'll find it.
385-5408, I think, off the top of my head. But let me talk to you afterwards, and I'll give you my contact information. You can relay that.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. I live over in Cheyenne Canyon, and the sewer line project, I think is what it is, that's going in all the way almost up to Seven Falls-ish
Okay.
along the shoulder. I don't know if there's another project that comes along after to maybe help with the bike lane, especially as you come down Cheyenne Boulevard toward Tejon. The work that was done is primarily in the bike lane, which creates a really bumpy. So I don't know who does the quality control. I'm sure the bike, I don't bike that much, but I notice it when I do. Who does quality control for the contractors who are doing that kind of work?
So first of all, if it's a wastewater line, that'd be Colorado Springs Utilities or a contractor that they hire to do that work. We have them pull a permit to work in the public rights of way. And then with that, we assign an inspector to go out there and make sure that they patch the road back to the way it should be, or the bike lane, and restripe it the way it's supposed to be when it's done. To be honest, that coordination and communication hasn't happened the way it should have over the years. We've worked on that. When I started with the city, I want to say there was several $100,000 in outstanding permit fees with CSU, just because they didn't know they were supposed to get a permit, or they just didn't, and we didn't know about the project. And so I'm glad to say that Eric Tharp and their organization's done a great job. He and I have been coordinating, and I think that fee is down to like $20,000 last I checked, and so, which is evident that, okay, the coordination's happening, communication is a lot better. But that's generally the process that goes through. And I'd certainly be glad, I have some cards here, I'd certainly be glad to follow up with that for you.
Great, thanks.
Yes, sir.
I wonder, talking about infrastructure, we never hear about transit, because transit isn't considered infrastructure in this city, which is my way of thinking of public crime. Is there any talk about doing that? Starting to consider transit as an infrastructure item, because it all interrelates to all of what we've been talking about.
Sure. Yeah, good point. I think, you may not hear a lot about it, but we are, I guess, thinking about it that way. As far even the buses. I've asked all the division managers for those various divisions to give me a 10-year plan for their assets and their infrastructure. And that goes to transit. It's their infrastructure, a lot of it asset is the buses, the drivers' contracts, the maintenance of those. So we're, in a way, treating it like that, even though you don't hear about it as much, and it is in like the Public Works Department with the infrastructure piece. But I'd certainly be glad if you have some other ideas and things we can look at as far as how we could better treat it like that. It'd be great to get some.
We have lots of ideas. Also, I'm a member of the Mobility Coordination Committee through the Pikes Peak Area Council of Government,
Okay.
and with the Coordination Transportation Committee.
Oh, good, okay.
And so, yeah, we'd love to.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great to get some
I'll
ideas.
ask Courtney to get in touch with you.
Okay. Sounds good. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question. Like in 2017, 18, we was talking to the gentleman, and they talking about bringing a trolley.
Okay.
in town. But I ain't seen nothing on here about it. And have you heard anything about it?
You know what, we had a public meeting a couple weeks ago, the North Nevada, we're trying to get the community to engage in the vision for North Nevada, and that idea was brought up by a subset group formed from that meeting.
Roswell guys?
I don't know, I just, the table reporting on it had a single speaker and I didn't get any names, but that was brought up as an idea for that corridor, as some sort of a trolley. But certainly right now, there's no plans to implement that. Like I said, we're working on the vision for that corridor right now, which is certainly a good time to bring that up. Good, go ahead. You again, you had your hand up first.
Okay, thank you. Is there any kind of process or plan in place for addressing the alleys throughout the city? They actually get a surprisingly large amount of traffic, and they're not, there's a lot of road issues, but anyhow, I've asked my question, a plan for the alleys.
We have, believe it or not, we have almost 1,400 alleys in the city that we maintain. And I'll be the first to say, I don't think we do a very good job of maintaining them. It's on our list of things to do, but right now we're focused on the roads.
Sure.
So we maintain some of them. We don't maintain them to the level we'd like to just yet. Some of it's a resource issue, and we're focused on the roads.
Is there some mechanism that we as the citizens who live with those could work into the governmental process to try to elevate that, or at least get it more formally recognized?
Yeah, I think certainly engaging your elected representatives, and also feel free to contact me. I had a gentleman contact me about 3 weeks ago. They're looking at opening up a business next to a public alley, They wanted to see if they could dress that up and fix it, and so we're working with them to do that in timing to make sure they get all their improvements done first, and then we come in there and improve the alley for them. So, you know, again, feel free to let me know, and I'd be happy to try and move that up the list and get that as well. Alan, you had a question?
One, just a comment and a thank you for the buffered bike lane pilot project that you're doing on Research Parkway.
Okay.
The road dieting or the right sizing. I know it's a contentious issue for folks that live in that
Yes,
corridor.
it is.
I've been up there several times driving and riding, and I have not experienced yet the Carmageddon, the traffic that we keep hearing about. We're going, a small group of us tomorrow to ride it on bicycles. Fantastic facility, and I know that there's a little bit of fear right now that even though it's a pilot project, which is the way we should be doing these things, that it could get pulled out early because of the naysayers, because of, you know, a loud opposition. So I wanted to be assured that it would be allowed to run its course, and that we would collect the data and then make the decision as appropriate, and not just react to a bunch of people screaming.
That is certainly the plan right now. If the mayor tells me to yank it, I'll have to yank it, but I don't think there's any indication of that. Again, our plan is to leave it in and let it run its course and see, you know, what the. You know,
And then my last, if you could, from the public works director down, there's a public perception right now that they took out a perfectly good travel lane just to accommodate those darn bicycles. Please let them know they took the lane out because they didn't need it, because it's excess capacity. The speeds were too high, the accidents were too great. So that lane was coming out anyway, and we used that as an opportunity to put in some, I consider it fairly world-class infrastructure that is really moving the needle.
Yep, and we have let them know that, all the people who called last week or so about that. We are telling them.
And then thank you for the October 8th public celebration and ride that the city is sponsoring. That's a huge move on the city's part.
Good.
We appreciate that.
Gentleman in the black shirt.
I wanted to say something about the utilities involvement with roads. First of all, I want to say I think you're doing a great job. I've been in the city a long time, since 1972. I've seen a big change in the approach to how you deal with problems. So if you get any negative vibes from this audience, I think we all like you. It's just that we have issues.
I appreciate it. I don't want to speak for Jim. I think we both appreciate any constructive criticism and how we can do better, so feel free.
And I wouldn't have your job for all the money in the world. I'm retired, so I don't have a job at all now, but I have a lot of experience with bike riding and roads and environment, and I even own a trucking company, so I come from all different aspects. If I was in your position and responsible for the condition of roads, I would not let anybody but my people fix them. I think the utilities, whoever they hire to patch the roads, ruins the roads. There are multiple examples all over the city. It's like riding a roller coaster many times. I think if it's a policy that could be changed, I would draw that repair work back into my own department. If I was going to be held responsible for the roads, I would want to fix them with my own people. And if that's a city policy, it's not a law. I mean, you let CSU fix the work that they do. They pull a permit and you inspect it, but I gotta tell you, they're not doing a good job. And I would fix it and bill them for it. And I think that would be an improvement in the work that you have to maintain.
Yeah, a couple things on that. First, I think that's a very good idea, and I think there's some truth to that if you drive around and look like you said. One of the things we're trying to coordinate with the 2C, the paving initiative, the very last thing I wanted to have happen was for us to repave a road, and then CSU has to get in there and cut it open to replace a water main. That was what was keeping me up at night. So we've worked out, the coordination has been great with CSU. Actually, I have a meeting right after this one over there at CSU to talk about next year's paving schedule. So far, with 2C, that hasn't happened. I hope it doesn't happen. There may be emergencies that we just are not foreseeing, but we're coordinating, yeah, all of that up front. Because again, that's the last thing I want to have happen. I don't want people thinking we're not coordinating and trying to minimize those incidents.
But things happen, things break, they have to go back in. But when they fix it, they don't do a good job.
Right.
And every time you have a patch and you have a linear break in that pavement, you see all kinds of deterioration, and it just goes to heck quick.
Yep, I think that's a good point. Someone over here, Gary, go ahead.
Oh, you remember me, good.
How can I not remember you?
You know what's coming.
I don't know what's coming, but I'm sure it'll be good.
Centennial.
Okay,
According to the geological survey map, it says slide area.
okay,
You're gonna build a road up there.
right,
And according to the spokesman at the Centennial meeting, it's only gonna have a 2-year warranty on it, which doesn't exist,
okay.
okay? And I said, why don't you put a 20-year warranty on it, performance warranty? And he just kind of turned his back and ignored me at that point in time. But isn't the city asking for a maintenance nightmare by putting that road in a slide area? Because the whole area is all slide area, and they're talking about not hotels, but church and
Hospital.
strip mall and apartments and
Hospital.
of course, Penrose has got a piece of dirt up there too. So why build it if you're gonna have a problem with it? I mean, it's gonna be a known problem.
So, good question. I think the best way to answer that is, it can be engineered, and I don't know if it's been engineered, so let me caveat that. It can be engineered and built in a way to minimize any damages or instances, impacts from a slide area. Just like, when they build a hospital or other buildings up there, they better darn well be taking that into consideration as well. But I don't know that that's the extent that that's been looked at, so.
Yeah, because part of that road's is out of warranty, the full extensions up there at Centennial. They're out of warranty, so they're already on the city's
Maintenance list.
dime now at this point in time. And it just seems foolish not to really hold a feet to the fire and say, we want a 20-year warranty on this road, because it's gonna be a new road, and as you say, engineered. But the question is, are there any engineering companies in this town, much less this state, that can build that road that is necessary for that area?
So I think there are, and that road, if you look at the plans, I believe there's a section of it that's actually concrete because of the subgrade issues. So I know they're taking some of that into consideration. I think there are firms and companies here that can do that. I think a lot of it, 20-year warranty in general, I think gets back to some of the point that Jim was making regarding the snow and ice removal. There's a cost to that. We'd like to have on all the 2C roads a longer warranty. There's a cost, and we won't get nearly the amount of roads done if we're paying more for them. Now, I know there's an offset. We pay more upfront and less maintenance, less long-term money spent.
Yeah.
But that's the trade, and you get less done, but I know there's a savings on the back end.
Well, I'd rather go for the savings on the back end, because your roads are gonna be around a little bit longer, but with this, quote, 2-year warranty that has been spec'd in, as I told you, last year they did North Nevada, between Fillmore and all the way up to Austin Bluffs, and it's failing. I mean, it's been not even 2 years and it's failing. And we don't need that. We need good quality construction. We seem to never have enough money to do it right the first time, but we always have enough money to do it over.
Right. So to that, if it is failing, again, we have, and it's inside that 2-year warranty. Again, arguably the 2-year warranty is not enough. We will be holding them accountable to get in there and fix that and repair it as needed. But again,
change the specs. Come on.
I know we could go on about 2-year versus 20-year for quite a while, and
Well,
benefits
if
and
Detroit, Michigan, a failed city, can put in a 20-year warranty on their roads, we sure can do it here.
First to nowhere. Part of the problem we deal with, and I think anyone who's ever done this, is the public. They expect to see more roads done, okay? So there's a balance between, do I want to put a 20-year warranty and do 5 miles versus do maybe a 5 or 10-year warranty and do 15 miles? Because the public is going to squawk, hey, we gave you $20 million and you only did this many roads. And some people don't care about a 20-year warranty, they just want their roads done. And I deal with this on a daily basis. I mean, we have subdivisions that are failing, that are $3 and $4 million to fix. And if I'm doing an expensive 20-year warranty here, that's gonna sit another 4 or 5 years before I can get to it, and they're not gonna have it. They just don't want any part of that, they want their roads fixed. I've got a gentleman that calls me up, he lives up in the Monument area. His name is Ron, I won't give his last name, but I get a once a month phone call whether I want it or not. It's usually a pretty good blue streak, you know, he gives it to me pretty hard, and I'll take the beating on the phone. He wants his cul-de-sac paved. Well, when the developer built that area, they said they would do it, the developer fell, and he's still on a gravel road. Ron is 81 or 82, so he's pretty cantankerous. But I said, well, Ron, let's look at the road tax, let's look at the money of where we're coming. I told you earlier, land.elpasoco.com, look up your tax document. In Ron's case, he pays $4.52 a year for road maintenance. Now, we blow that, he blew that on the phone call when he called. So what we try to do is, we do our best to maintain that gravel. You gotta understand, I guess there's a cost benefit analysis, there's the COI, there's the budget, and then you add politics, and then you add people. And when you put all those together, the result may not necessarily be, as you said, build it right the first time. We try to do that, but again, that decreases the amount that we can do, and the public won't stand for it. And that's where we're stuck with that public opinion. How do we try to get the best bang for our buck, and then realize that, you know, there are some ebbs and flows that we have to work with, and it's a difficult thing to do. You know, if your area is good, you're happy, but the person next to you across the street is not happy at all. You know, and if I go to the public and say, hey, I did a 20-year warranty and I only did 10 miles, or I did a 10-year warranty and I did 25 miles, which one do you think is more acceptable?
Well, I think my objection is the 2-year warranty. I mean,
Yeah, and that I can't. Again,
it doesn't exist, I mean,
right.
It's like a tail light warranty.
And I'll tell you another thing too, 20-year warranty, that's nice, but when I go back to the company and they don't exist anymore after 10 years, it's really a failed warranty. And well, you say escrow, but here's some of the mistakes that we've made, and I call it sins of our fathers, and it's kind of what we've inherited. They have escrow.
Jim, you might tie in the Indian Village issue as well.
Right, I'll do that. So we'll do escrow. Let's talk about escrow. So we have failed subdivision, and we cash in their bonds. Well, guess what? Their bond doesn't increase with the COI, the cost of living index. So now at 3.1, 3.2% each year, I'm losing that. So by the time I get to the point that I can legally cash in that bond, I'm 15, 20% down, and that's coming out of the taxpayer's dollar to fix that subdivision, which should have been done by the developer in the first place. So we're fighting that, we're trying to work that issue and change the rules. The second part of that is, in the county, and we'll talk about the Indian Village, they were told, the developer, once you bring the roads up to county standard, the gravel roads up to county standard, we would accept them into the maintenance plan. That was 1971 or 72 when you got here. And here we are in 2016, and the roads still aren't up to that standard. And I've got folks out there that are at the prime of their life in their 70s and 80s, and they're dealing with gravel roads that they can't take care of anymore. And the gentleman that had his own grader, had his own truck company, out of the kindness of his heart, I used to live down there, would grade the roads. I'd give him coffee. Well, he's since passed, and those roads aren't being taken care of. So we're struggling with, you know, how do I, with my limited amount of funds. Now, Travis gave me the numbers from PPRT and everything else, and I wanted to start crying because mine's half of the money that he is when he's talking about that. But it's tough, and when you have a finite amount of funds, and it would cost, what is it, an average is 1.2, 1.4 million to pave a road if you do it right, you put the subgrade in and everything else. It's astronomical if you sit down and look at it. So I get the 20-year warranty. I think there's some issues with that, but there has to be a balance, folks, and that's tough. And as Ron who calls me again, my monthly call, you know, he says, I don't care. I just want my cul-de-sac bed. I don't care about the rest of the people in this county. And so that's kind of the attitude that we deal with some folks. So just know where that's coming from.
And to put in perspective, the city has roughly 5,700 lane miles of road. And each year with 2C, 5-year program, we're getting roughly 300 lane miles done. So if you do the math, you know, if we were to do a 20-year warranty, we'd be getting nowhere near that amount done. So like Jim said, it's a balancing act. It's not an easy one. Just try and do what you can with the resources you have. Yes, sir.
Well, Travis, I've seen a couple different approaches technologically for the road resurfacing. I'm referring to Austin Bluffs, for example, where he did, I guess I'd call it a rougher surface. It's like gravel on top of asphalt.
Chip seal?
There you go. And then on other roads, it's the more traditional, in my experience anyway, the smooth surface. Can you explain what choices you make on?
Sure, so a chip seal is more preventative maintenance.
Okay.
And I'll talk a little bit about our PPRTA funding. I mentioned that the O&M division gets roughly 17 million in PPRTA maintenance dollars per year. So before 2C, we were using that money to repave road, mill and overlay. Well, with 2C now, we're repaving the roads with that, and we're using our PPRTA money differently. We're using that to, I like to use the analogy to changing the oil in your car. We weren't doing any preventative maintenance before. And so a chip seal, a crack seal, those types of treatments to the road prolong the life of the road. It's relatively cheap, and again, it's prolonging the life of the asset, and so we're using those PPRTA dollars now to do that preventative maintenance, the crack seal, the chip seal, things of that nature.
It's like retreading a tire is what it is, but treads on a tire.
Judith, I think you had a question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed your presentation, so you may have talked about this already. But for more years than since you were born, I've been going to drainage meetings in the city.
Okay.
And a couple of years ago, I was very excited because we were working on the new stormwater drainage manual. We were looking at what I would call more progressive cities where drainage ways are considered amenities, and they were much more natural. So we were getting rid of this notion of concrete everywhere, which then requires a huge amount of maintenance. I'm kind of disturbed because I hear from friends who work for the city that we're going back to the old model. So I'm wondering if you could reassure me that we're going to follow the drainage ways as amenities and with native landscaping and positive and less concrete, and not returning to the model that was costing us tons of money and was so unbelievably unattractive in the city.
Yeah, so I'll say in general, yes, and the criteria manual was adopted before I got to the city. I think it was in 14. And we are following that, although both the development community and the city seem to have put that on the shelf and didn't really do anything with it. But we are following that, and we're actually going to be having classes for the development community here, some workshops later this year to reintroduce them to that, make sure that they know what's in there and to follow it. And I would point to some work we did in Patty Jewett, I think, last year. We made that all natural. So we're definitely continuing that. There's also an effort going on right now that we're undertaking to rebrand stormwater and bring in some folks to help make more of that an awareness of the asset and maybe some recreational opportunities associated with that, so things of that nature. So we are heading down that path.
If there's some way that we can encourage that, I mean, it makes such a visual difference in the community.
Right.
Are you going to advertise the classes so some of us could go there and be supportive? Or are they specifically for the same developers who build the horrible roads and do a lot of other things that aren't really benefiting our community, build in landslide areas, et cetera?
Right now, and to answer your question, yes, you'd certainly be welcome to come there, and we could even come here and do another class. Right now, the workshops are geared towards those developers to make sure they know, again, what they're going to be required to do and the level of expectation going forward. But we'd certainly be happy to come back here and do a class or a workshop and let them know what we're doing. The gal in the back.
I mean, for both of you, I was wondering, when you do have to tear up the old roads with the materials that are generated, that you have them, what happens to those, and does any of it get recycled?
So like concrete, I recycle concrete huge. I mean, I get it ground up and use it on the gravel roads because it's great for the gravel roads. Same thing with the asphalt. We'll reuse all of it. There's not much of it that we don't recycle.
Same with the city. We use a lot of the asphalt millings in some alleys, some driveways, some areas that are way out east, and even helping some folks in the county say,
Right.
here's some base, and we can put that down.
And that's a good point. When you say, do we work together? Absolutely. Hey, I've got culverts. You need them? Yeah, I need them.
Yeah.
And we'll go and grab them and do that. So there's a huge. Don't listen to what everybody's telling you. We're working with each other. You'll hear a lot of things, but that's not the case. So.
Yeah, the culverts. It's a good idea. So the city received some culverts from DIA. They weren't practical for what we need them for. We got them for free, I think, and they just weren't needed. And our guys were talking about destroying them and having to pay money to destroy them. I said, well, time out. Let me call the county, see if they can use them, and I think we gave all of them to you guys, and you were able to use them.
Yeah, we came up and snagged them. During the Black Forest fire, what happens is the fire is so hot, the ground becomes hydrophobic. In other words, it doesn't hold water, so it's like raining on a flat rock. And we lost a road, Casey Lane, 25 feet long, 30 feet deep, it was gone. GAWN, it's gone. After one rain. And we were able to use the culverts from DIA, which saved us almost $800,000. And now we can land a small jet on that road and stop it. And I think that culvert will be there longer than you and I will be around.
Probably.
So there is a lot, we do a lot together.
And they were, when the city got them a few years ago, you know, they just dumped them on a lot, and homeless people were camping in them and doing drugs, meth, and these are large culverts, and again, people were living in them, so yes, we coordinated and they put them to good use.
I'd like to ask two questions. One's a small, one a little larger. First of all, this is rather simple, but I live in a small neighborhood that's recently organized, and we had wonderful response from stormwater and from forestry for some of our needs, and we appreciate that. I have in my neighborhood someone who lives right along Dublin, and there's a city-owned tree that has caused the sidewalk to upheaval a good 5 inches, and he's worried that he could be sued if somebody trips. And I gave him some follow-up information, but he is currently fighting metastatic cancer. So can I follow up with whom, how, get it taken? He's worried he can get sued. Can he get sued?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but a lawyer I think will tell you that anybody can be sued at any time.
Okay. Then what needs to be done to get the city, he's not allowed to grind down that sidewalk, nor am I. So what needs to be done?
So first of all is, I think we need to work on fixing the tree, maybe it's a root or something.
Well, it's a city-owned tree. He's
Okay.
been told by a licensed forester if he does anything to it, he will be sued for the price of the tree.
So it would be the Parks Department, and I can give you my information afterwards, and I can put you in touch with the Parks Director, and I think she'll be here a couple of weeks.
Yes, she'll be here on October 25th.
But let's not wait, go ahead and give me your information, I'll give you mine, and then I can put you in contact
Okay,
with the Parks
appreciate
Department.
that.
and handle that.
The other is a little broader question and may fall, it has to do with snow removal, because I'm gonna work really hard to get my neighborhood to clear the sidewalks along our parts of Dublin. But once you get up to Academy and right there in front of Sprouts, nobody is clearing away the snow. You cannot get to the bus stop. You cannot safely walk. We have what we call originals who've lived there since the 70s. We need to be walking to stay healthy. We have someone who walks with a white cane, cannot use public transportation after about October 30th, etc. So how can we, and philosophically, I believe we should be spending more money maintaining what we already have as opposed to expanding, making more stuff, all new stuff. We need to really take care of what we have. So, what can be done to get the snow off of the sidewalks that are not beside homes? And some of those are not even beside businesses. They're next to a fence that runs the length of Academy or whatever. So
Okay.
tell me about snow removal and what can be done.
So,
Because it's very important.
Well, I'll say from the county side, we don't have a whole lot of sidewalks. We got some, we got a few of them. The key word you said was community. And we don't have the resources to clear sidewalks, I think, to the level that you're looking for, so that makes it difficult. I mean, we have limited resources. But when you say community, you know, in the neighborhood that I live, I mean, the folks where I lived in Black Forest at one point. It was not uncommon for the neighbors to go out and clear all of it. I mean, all of it, all the way to the post office box. We have a veteran who's 100% disabled next to me, and it's not uncommon for me to run my tractor up there and clear out his driveway and let him do his thing. So that's kind of a big thing. I think community is huge, and we should take advantage of that. But the sidewalks are a tough issue because we're just trying to get the roads cleared so people can get to work and people can move and hospital and appointments and get their food shopping and all that done. So sidewalks can be a challenge. And I don't have, I think I got two bus stops, three. I got 3 bus stops in the county. And that is a good question. I mean, how do we clear that and make sure people can access transportation?
It's too long of a stretch.
I think that's a good question. And that's something I'll have to ask what our guys are doing because I don't know.
Is there a way I can contact you and say, what'd you find out?
520-6900.
I'm sorry?
6900. That's my direct line. If Ron can call me, you can call me, trust me.
I'm not 81 yet.
From the city's perspective, real quick, that certainly is an issue, and I think Jim hit it right on the head. Community, if they know, generally if they're educated and they know that it's their responsibility, somebody owns that sidewalk, somebody owns the property adjacent to that sidewalk. Even if it's an open space, somebody owns it. But what we do in a lot of instances around the city, particularly with ADA accessibility, is we know some of those folks, they've contacted us, and we'll just send somebody out there to clear the sidewalks, so enable them to get to the bus stop.
It needs to be routine.
I know, it's not easy to do, like Jim said, it's tough,
So
but
what
we
do I
will
need
send
to
out.
do? Tell me, you said somebody owns that sidewalk, how do I find out who?
Well, the property,
LandElPasoCo.com and look at the, you can look at it, look at your footprint. You know, if you look at your home, you can actually look at the
Nancy,
footprint of where
we
you're.
can help you figure out who that is.
Address and plate.
and certainly, again, feel free to contact me and we'll get that area on the list, and, you know, we probably won't get out there, sort of concentrate on roads, we won't get out there, that morning right away, but a lot of times we'll come in there, and even if we have to send somebody out there with a snow blower or a shovel just to clear path, particularly for those folks who are ADA, need ADA accessibility.
Your contact?
Go ahead. I've got a card, I'll give you a card before.
And just to emphasize how it's a chronic, difficult problem, just a quick story is that I was riding the bus because I had had shoulder surgery and was on opioids or something and couldn't drive. And so I managed to get to the bus stop because it was my shoulder, not my legs. But there was a fellow waiting in a wheelchair. He could not get to the bus stop a half a block away. So he was waiting at the corner of Dublin Academy. And a vehicle pulled up, and as if they were gonna make the right turn, and they were blocking the view of him for the bus coming. And between me and the bus stop was a burn about 3 feet tall of snow that had been there for weeks. And so when we saw the bus coming, another rider and I started running to the intersection so that the bus would see this fellow, but had we not been there.
He would, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a problem where I can call you, hey, it snowed last night, would y'all come?
Right, but if we know that.
It's more of an ongoing problem, especially for that particular bus stop, because there is no business that's obviously responsible for that snow removal.
Yes, let's talk that.
Okay.
You had a question?
Yeah, is there a plan to revive the stormwater runoff fee, AKA the rain tax?
Not right now, there's not. As I mentioned, right now, the stormwater division is funded straight through the city's general fund, at roughly $16 million a year. That's roughly, I'd say half, a little over half is going straight to projects, the other half is going to the municipal responsibilities that I mentioned. So there's no plan, whether that happens in the future.
It was, sold to us before as utterly needed.
Well,
Now
I
you're
think,
saying it's not.
well, I'm saying right now, and I'll let you, read the papers and stuff, right now, we're funding it all through the city's general fund, which means there's some other things that aren't being funded. Police, fire, some of those things. So, right now, there's no plan to implement that. Yes, sir.
Travis, on behalf of all the residents of Pine Cliff, I want to thank you and all the people that fixed our Pine Cliff, the Grand Canyon of Pine Cliff. And it was a job well done. I know that the original estimate was $750,000 to fix. Do you know what the final cost was? Because there were a number of surprises.
I do not. I can find that out for you. I wouldn't be surprised if there were surprises, then I'm sure the cost.
Yeah, there were some utilities that weren't on their map that they ended up cutting gas lines and a few other things that really complicated the project, but they hung in there, and it probably took over a year.
Well, thank you for your patience with that, and your neighbor, if you could pass that on.
We really appreciate that it's been fixed after 30 years. So
for those of you who aren't aware of that, there was a stormwater pipe that every time it rained hard, that pipe just shot water out feet and all the way down, and it was constantly flooding out somebody's house. I know.
Yeah.
It was an amazingly devastating sort of thing to see happen continually. Yeah.
And they did a great job. So
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
About 10 years ago, the Old North End in Colorado College financed a symposium on rubberized asphalt.
Okay.
Which places where they're using it, they used it to get rid of the old tires and also to save money because it lasts a whole lot longer. But what they found sort of as an accident is in addition to lasting longer, people were ecstatic because it can lower the noise from the roadway by 5 to 7 decibels, which is a noticeable enough difference that actually you turn the radio down in your car because it's so much quieter. We've had a lot of articles recently in the Denver Post and Colorado Springs Gazette about the 2 huge tire depositories we have, one up by Greeley and one just south of Colorado Springs. Why aren't we going with rubberized asphalt, which lasts longer and is so much quieter?
So I'll let Jim want to go
So
first.
let's talk about this. 5 years ago, I sponsored a bill, the schools were trying to raise the tire disposal fee from $1.50 to $2.50 to fund their grants. I spoke out against it because we weren't doing enough with the waste tires. The county owns, off exit 119, we own that tire dump. There's about 30 million tires. And keep in mind that the tires, a per tire creates about 1 gallon of oil. So you got 30 million gallons of oil sitting there that could contaminate and cause a RIC or a Superfund site at some point. So we sponsored along with Looper, Marshall Looper, and we got that passed, and it was a joint Republican Democratic bill. It was great, and I chaired that board for 5 years. And what we did is we came up with a plan statewide to handle the one in Weld County you're talking about, and the one down here. Unfortunately, what we've had happen though is the owners end up going bankrupt. So then we go through all this mess. The current owners are CMEX down at 119, and what they're having a tough time doing is the grinding. They have to grind to a certain, and they're going to use it for fuel to make concrete. So that's an efficient way of using it. Now the rubberized asphalt, we've talked about that, and we've had several. I went to Alabama where they use quite a bit of it, and California requires it by law to be used in a certain percentage of the roads. I don't know that we are, to get it ground to the level that it needs to be grounded, to get it used, it's going to be tough because it's quite costly up front. We go back to cost-benefit analysis, right? So until the state actually provides maybe some supplemental, support to use that type of asphalt, to get us to use that, I think it'll be difficult to make that decision to use rubberized asphalt. Now, you hear the stories of how they've caught fire and all this, that, and the other. There is some of that on Union already. I think it's been used, and it's very good. It's held up well, and it is quiet. And I think it's something that if we could afford to use it, if it was affordable to some extent, I think it would be. I think the biggest problem is the production of it.
Your cost benefit analysis.
That's exactly. Well, but you see, I've got to sell CMEX. I've got to tell CMEX I don't want you to use it for fuel, right? I want you to use it. I want you to grind it even make it even smaller. Because remember, you got steel belts and you got all this stuff that's in there. I want you to grind it smaller so that we can use it for rubberized asphalt. Well, their cost for that machinery to make that happen is astronomical. It's pretty high. So, and then shipping. Let's say in California they have the capability to throw that on a train. Would not be cost effective to bring it here. So there's a lot. It's not just as simple as those 3 items as you said. And having chaired that board for 5 years, I can tell you there's a lot to it.
Is somebody working on it?
They are. It's part of the master plan for the state, and the goal is to track a tire from cradle to grave. So if you buy a tire today, we know where that tire's at, and we know when it was turned in, and the whole 9 yards. So that's part of it. We hope that CMEX, they're about 2 years behind of where they should be. They do have a grinder out there, and they are chopping that stuff up. And remember, when we had the downturn, when construction slowed down, the CMEX didn't have so much, they didn't really have a use for it. But now they're starting to spin that up again. So it's a process, and it takes time. So I hope that answers your question.
So anything to add to that, the city did do a test section several years ago in Austin Bluffs Union. Actually, the engineering firm I worked for prior to coming to the city engineered that for the city. And it has held up well. One of the things to consider is you have to look at the underlying soil conditions when you use rubberized pavement. It has to be a well-draining soil, and a lot of that we don't have a lot around here sometimes. And then as Jim mentioned, it's not easy to get that. There's a plant in Texas, I believe, and it's cost prohibitive. We had them come up and do that section of Austin Bluffs Union, and it can be very costly to do that. And the plants around here, what happens is they can't just retool their equipment to do that. It's a process. They need to shut all their equipment down, have it ready to accept the rubberized asphalt that comes up all their equipment, and so that, as Jim mentioned, the costs just start to skyrocket. And so we're trying to figure out, the benefit to cost ratio, how long does it last, the sound deadening qualities, like you mentioned, certainly are a benefit, and so we're working through that right now.
The state solutions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think, the state does give supplemental to the guys who recycle tires. They actually give them some supplement to take it in, because the cost of coal is cheaper than tires. So, hey, why should I burn tires if I can burn coal? So they supplement that to drive the cost down, to have them use those tires. I think in order to bring the business here, there has to be some incentive for a business owner to come in and as Travis said, to provide that specialized equipment to make that happen. I know the state has looked at it, but I don't, the board sunset a year, 2 years ago. So I'm not quite sure where they're at with it, but no, I think that's a very valid point. And I'll be honest with you, tires for me, I was the fire marshal for El Paso County for a decade, right? Tires for me are a huge issue, because if that one down in 119 catches, it's gonna burn for not months, years. So it's, and we pumped, in Hanover Fire Department, we've probably got $3 or $4 million in equipment, because that quick attack, that first attack is critical. If that fire chief doesn't get his handle on that thing right away, and keep in mind, CMEX has spent almost $4.5 million improving that site, because at one time there was just one big pile. Now it's separated with berms so that we can manage it, and the roads are wide enough to get fire trucks and equipment and people in there. And one of the questions I was asked by the state is, how did you get CMEX to spend almost $4 million on a site and they haven't even made a dime off of it yet? Well, we held a hammer over their head. Either you fix it or I bury it, and it's done. Because I don't want, it's just a big hazard that we need to take care of. So we've been blessed in that respect, that we've got them to work with us. But I agree with you. I would like to see them use no tires in Colorado. I don't want to see any waste tires in Colorado. I think we can use them, and they're just a huge hazard.
So where does the $1.50 that we're paying per tire go?
So now that's been changed. Now the schools used to get it for research on how to use the tires, right? The colleges, and that should sunset here shortly. They were using them for grants, so they had to continue to use a portion of that for those grants. Those will die. All that money goes right back into monitoring, code enforcement, and tracking of all those tires. So it used to be a small portion of it. Now it'll be 100% here, if it's not already. And that was one of, and I didn't make friends with the educational institutions, which is unfortunate. But the problem is the research had deviated from how to use the waste tires to totally something else. And we tried to bring them back into the fold, but you can only study something so much before you realize the reality is here's what we have to do. And I think that worked out very well. So
I think we have one more question here, then I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to say anything you thought you would have liked to have said before we didn't get a chance to.
I have a question, like, when my husband go for a walk, I know you said something about bridges. The bridges, like this one bridge, you have a lot of, circle things, big concrete things out underneath there, and a lot of trash and stuff. So as just a neighbor person that walking through, would we just pick it up, or do we have to report that in?
You could do either. Probably safe to report it. There have been a lot of instances where there's some homeless folks living down there and it's been dangerous. So I would suggest you go ahead and call it in and we can send some folks down there. We've actually, in some of the areas we've had to get in and clean up, we've actually had to have police escorts come in and with us to help us do that.
Yeah,
so for your safety, I would say go ahead and call it in.
Oh, okay. Because of the homeless?
Yeah, again, I don't know which bridge you're talking about, but for your safety, I would say go ahead and err on that side and call it in. We can add it to the list.
Travis, do you have anything you'd like to add that we haven't talked about?
I really don't, other than just appreciate everyone being engaged. Like I said, one of my goals is to increase the level of trust in your local government, be transparent, and so I appreciate your level of engagement, and anything I can do to help that, certainly let me know. I'll leave my cards here, direct line to my desk. You don't get an operator, and it's my personal cell phone number. Call me or email me at any time.
Thank you. Jim?
If any of you decide to move out east, outside of the city limits and into the county, just understand, if you drive a gravel road to your home that you buy, it's probably going to stay gravel while you live there. So I think one of the biggest challenges I face is, what are we at, 650,000 people now, or you've got 400 of them, and I got the 250. But what's happening is people are moving out east, and they're expecting city services, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we deal with. And so it makes it kind of tough, because we don't have the capital that the city has, because of the amount of people that we have out there. We have less people, larger land space. So if you do move out east, we'll make sure that your roads are clear, we'll do the best we
Buy a
can. But
truck.
yeah, if you drive a gravel road to the house you buy, it's probably gonna be that way until you move again, so. And again, as Travis said, I like it when people are engaged. Sometimes they get animated, and it's kind of fun. But, the thing is, we're doing the best we can with what we have, and we always work towards saving money and being more efficient. And it's a progress, it just can't happen overnight, so.
We normally, with other speakers, will take a couple minutes at the end, let people come up and ask questions. Is that okay with you?
For a small fee, we can do a lot of.
And thank you very